I always knew my sister's engagement party would be the death of me, but I never expected it to end with me being accused of sleeping with her fiancé in front of 200 guests. My name is Sawyer, and I've spent 28 years being Caroline's little sister. You know the type. The golden child who excels at everything while you're just there. Tonight was supposed to be her moment again, and I was determined to fade into the background like always. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballrooms sparkled with champagne flutes and fake smiles. I adjusted my emerald dress, the one Caroline picked out because it wouldn't overshadow her white designer gown, and tried to blend in with the potted plants. There's my favorite wallflower. Blaze appeared beside me, his familiar grin offering temporary relief. You look like you're having about as much fun as a root canal. That obvious? I sipped my champagne. I'm trying to perfect my invisibility act. Good luck with that. Your mother's been telling everyone how her baby is still single while Caroline landed the perfect man. He rolled his eyes. Speaking of Prince Charming, Dylan was working the room like a politician, his perfectly styled hair and $1,000 suit screaming old money. He caught my eye and winked. I quickly looked away, my stomach churning. God, I need air, I muttered, heading for the terrace. Blaze followed, concern etched on his face. Saw, what's wrong? You've been off all night. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another message from Dylan. I'd been getting them for weeks, each one more inappropriate than the last. I deleted it without reading, just like all the others. Nothing's wrong, I lied. Just family stuff. Ladies, my mother's voice cut through the night air. Caroline's about to give her speech. Get inside now. We shuffled back in as Caroline took center stage, radiant in white. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, she began, her voice carrying across the room, especially my beautiful sister Sawyer. My chest tightened. This wasn't in the script. My sister, who's always been there for me. Caroline's voice cracked. Who I trusted completely. She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. How could you sleep with him? The room went silent. 200 pairs of eyes locked onto me. What? I stammered. Caroline, I saw the messages, she screamed. On his phone. All those late-night texts, the pictures. Caroline, please. Dylan stepped forward, playing the concerned fiancé perfectly. Let's discuss this privately. No, she pulled away from him. I want everyone to know what kind of sister she is. Rosalie, Caroline's best friend, rushed to her side. Care, honey, let's go somewhere quiet. I stood frozen as whispers erupted around me. My mother's face had turned to stone. Blaze gripped my arm, keeping me upright as my world imploded. I never slept with him, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Caroline, you have to believe me. Show them your phone then, Rosalie challenged, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. Show everyone the messages. Yes, show us, Caroline demanded. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. I deleted them all. He wouldn't stop sending them, but I never responded. Not once. How convenient, someone muttered in the crowd. Caroline, I stepped toward my sister, but she backed away. You know me. I would never. I thought I knew you, she spat. I guess I was wrong. The room spun as Caroline stormed out, Rosalie close behind. Dylan gave me one last look. Was that a smirk? Before following them. Well, my mother said, her voice arctic. I suppose the party's over. As guests began filtering out, Blaze pulled me aside. What really happened? I took a shaky breath. Remember when you said I've been off lately? It's because of Dylan. He's been messaging me for weeks, getting more aggressive each time. I kept deleting them because I didn't want to hurt Caroline, but I pulled out an envelope from my clutch. I also kept screenshots, just in case. In case of what? I watched as Rosalie hurried after my sister, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Something about her eagerness to fuel the drama didn't sit right. In case exactly this happened, I said quietly. And now I think I know why. The ballroom emptied around us, leaving behind half-empty champagne glasses and shattered family ties. But as I gripped the envelope containing proof of Dylan's true nature, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. You need to see this now, I said, pounding on Caroline's apartment door. The hallway was eerily quiet at midnight, but I knew she was home. Her car was in its usual spot, and I'd seen her bedroom light on. Go away. Her voice was thick with tears. Care, please. I have proof. I pressed my forehead against the door. I'm not leaving until you let me show you. The lock clicked, and Caroline appeared, mascara streaked across her face. She'd changed into sweatpants but still wore her engagement party jewelry, a painful reminder of the evening's disaster. 5 minutes, she said coldly. Then you leave. I followed her inside, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. The apartment was a mess. Flowers torn apart, photos face down, an empty wine bottle on the coffee table. Where's Rosalie? I asked, noticing her best friend's absence. She went to get more wine. Caroline collapsed onto the couch. Someone should be enjoying my engagement party. I sat beside her, keeping distance between us. Remember when we were kids and I broke Mom's favorite vase? You took the blame because you knew she'd go easier on you. What's your point? My point is, I've never forgotten that, or any other time you've had my back. I pulled out my phone, which is why I would never betray you like this. I opened my screenshots folder and handed her the phone. These started 3 months ago. At first, they were casual, asking about your favorite things, claiming he wanted to surprise you. Then they got different. Caroline's hands trembled as she scrolled. Her face paled with each message. I can't stop thinking about you. She read aloud. Caroline doesn't understand me like you do. We should meet somewhere private. She looked up, eyes wide. You never responded. Not once, I confirmed. I blocked him twice, but he kept using new numbers. I saved everything because something felt wrong, like he was setting me up. But why would he? The door opened, and Rosalie bustled in with 2 bottles of wine. She froze when she saw me. What is she doing here? Rosalie's voice was sharp. Showing me some interesting messages, Caroline said quietly. You wouldn't know anything about those, would you, Rose? Rosalie's perfectly manicured hand tightened around the wine bottle. Care, honey, you're upset. Don't let her manipulate you. Funny choice of words, I said, pulling more papers from my envelope, especially considering these. I spread out printed screenshots of conversations between Dylan and Rosalie. Weeks of planning, coordinating when to send messages, discussing how to make Caroline doubt me. Where did you get those? Rosalie whispered. Blaze works in cybersecurity, I said. Amazing what you can recover from a cloud backup, even after deletion. Want to explain why you're helping Dylan set me up? Caroline stood, wine forgotten. Rose, tell me this isn't real. Rosalie's facade cracked. He promised. It wasn't supposed to. She took a shaky breath. You don't understand. Dylan and I. How long? Caroline's voice was deadly quiet. 6 months, Rosalie whispered. He said he'd leave you for me, but he needed a reason that wouldn't hurt his reputation. When he noticed how jealous you get about Sawyer, I caught Caroline as her knees buckled. Together, we sank onto the couch while Rosalie stood awkwardly, still clutching her wine bottles like shields. Get out, Caroline said. Care, please. Get out! Caroline hurled a throw pillow at her former best friend. Rosalie fled, leaving the apartment door wide open behind her. For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then Caroline turned to me, fresh tears falling. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have known you'd never. Hey. I pulled her into a hug. You're not the one who needs to apologize. I humiliated you in front of everyone. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. God, Mom probably thinks. Mom always thinks the worst of me anyway. I shrugged. But that's not important right now. What matters is what we're going to do about this. Caroline's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I picked up one of the screenshots. Well, we have proof that your fiancé and best friend conspired to humiliate both of us. They tried to destroy our relationship to cover up their affair. A small smile played at my lips. Question is, how do we want to return the favor? For the first time that night, Caroline smiled back, a dangerous glint in her eye that I recognized from our childhood pranking days. Tell me more, she said. As I began outlining my thoughts, I realized something had shifted. For the first time in our lives, Caroline wasn't the star and I wasn't the shadow. We were equals, united against a common enemy. And heaven help anyone who tried to come between sisters out for revenge. Check your deleted messages folder, I said, watching Caroline scroll through her phone. We'd moved to her kitchen table, surrounded by coffee cups and revenge plans. Dylan might have gotten sloppy. I never even knew there was a deleted folder. Caroline's fingers trembled as she navigated through her settings. Oh my God. What? There are dozens of messages, from both of them. She looked up, face pale. They were deleting them from my phone remotely using some app. I pulled my chair closer. Show me. The messages painted a sickening picture. While Dylan was sending me inappropriate texts, he'd been carrying on a full-blown affair with Rosalie. They'd even used Caroline's own apartment when she was at work. That's why she always offered to water my plants, Caroline whispered. I gave her a key because I trusted her. Keep reading. Caroline's gasp echoed through the kitchen. They were planning to announce their engagement next month, at my parents' anniversary party. She slammed the phone down. He was going to dump me in front of our entire family. And blame it all on me, I added. The jealous little sister who ruined everything. No one would question it. Mom would have disowned you. Pretty sure she already has. I took a sip of coffee. But that's not important right now. What matters is that we have everything we need. Caroline's phone buzzed. Dylan's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing, I said. Answer it, on speaker. Caroline's hand shook as she hit the button. Hello? Baby, please. Dylan's voice oozed concern. Let me explain. Your sister's been throwing herself at me for months. I didn't want to hurt you by telling you. Save it, Caroline snapped. I've seen the messages, the real ones. A pause. What messages? The ones between you and Rosalie, the ones you deleted from my phone. Caroline's voice grew stronger. The ones about your little plan. Caroline, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I'm thinking very clearly. She met my eyes across the table. Clear enough to know that if you don't meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow at noon, every single screenshot goes to your father. I wonder how the board of directors would feel about their CEO's son planning to humiliate his fiancé. Another pause, longer this time. You're bluffing. I leaned toward the phone. Hi, Dylan. Remember all those messages you sent me? The ones I never responded to? Turns out they're pretty damning when paired with your conversations with Rosalie, especially the parts about using me as your scapegoat. Sawyer. Noon tomorrow. Caroline interrupted. Bring Rosalie. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. For a moment, we sat in silence. That felt good, she finally said. Just wait until tomorrow. I pulled out my laptop. Now, about those security cameras in Cafe Luna. What about them? Let's just say Blaze owes me a favor, and he's very good at his job. Caroline's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to record the confrontation? Better. I typed rapidly, pulling up blueprints of the cafe. I want to broadcast it, live. To who? Remember that group chat Mom has with all her society friends? The one she added us to, but we never use? I grinned. Turns out Dylan's mom is in it, along with half the country club. Caroline matched my grin. And the board members' wives. Exactly. I closed the laptop. But first we need to make a few calls, starting with that wedding planner who's been blowing up your phone. Amanda, why? Because she's also the event coordinator for your parents' anniversary party. The one where Dylan planned to humiliate you? I raised an eyebrow. I think she deserves a heads up about the change in entertainment. Caroline pulled out her phone again, determination replacing grief in her eyes. What else? We need to call the jewelry store first thing tomorrow. That engagement ring needs to be returned before Dylan can get his hands on it. Already done. Caroline twisted the ring off her finger. I'm meeting them at 10 a.m. Perfect. I stood, stretching. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Caroline caught my arm as I headed for the door. Sawyer, thank you for not giving up on me even when I didn't believe you. That's what sisters are for. I hugged her tight. Besides, no one messes with the Townsend girls. No one, she agreed. As I drove home, my phone lit up with a message from Blaze. Cameras are set, audio too. Whatever you're planning, it better be good. I smiled in the darkness. Good didn't begin to cover what we had in store for tomorrow. Dylan and Rosalie thought they could play us against each other. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Cafe Luna buzzed with its usual lunch crowd, but the tension at our corner table could have cut glass. Caroline sat beside me, elegant in a black dress that screamed, "Funeral for my relationship." Blaze lounged at the counter, pretending to work on his laptop while actually managing our live feed. They're late. Caroline muttered, checking her phone. They'll come. I adjusted my water glass, making sure it wouldn't block the hidden camera. Too much at stake not to. Right on cue, Dylan strode in, Rosalie trailing behind him. He'd worn his power suit, the one he used for board meetings. Rosalie looked like she hadn't slept, her designer outfit wrinkled and her makeup slightly smudged. Caroline, darling, Dylan started, pulling out a chair. Sit down and shut up, Caroline said pleasantly. Several nearby diners glanced over. Perfect. There's no need for drama. Dylan lowered his voice. We can discuss this privately. Like you discussed things privately in my apartment? Caroline's voice carried just enough to draw more attention. While I was at work? Rosalie sank into her chair, face burning. Care, please. Don't call me that. Caroline pulled out her phone. Only my friends call me that. You know, friends who don't sleep with my fiancé. This is ridiculous. Dylan straightened his tie. Whatever you think you have. I slid my tablet across the table. We have everything. Every message, every plan, every detail about how you were going to blame me for your affair and humiliate Caroline at her parents' anniversary party. Those messages could be faked, Dylan scoffed, but his face had paled. True, I nodded. But the security footage from Caroline's building isn't faked. Neither are the hotel receipts, or the messages you sent me. I leaned forward. Want to see them all? The board members' wives are watching right now. Live. Dylan's head snapped up, finally noticing Blaze in his laptop. His composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. Already did. Caroline smiled sweetly. Wave to your mother, Dylan. She just joined the stream. Rosalie burst into tears. I'm so sorry. He said he loved me. He promised we'd be together. Save it, I cut in. We saw your messages too. This was your idea, wasn't it? The plan to blame me? Rosalie glanced at Dylan, who was frantically checking his phone. Yes, I knew Caroline was always sensitive about you getting attention. It seemed perfect. Perfect? Caroline's voice shook. I've known you since college. You were my maid of honor. And you had everything, Rosalie snapped. The perfect job, the perfect fiancé, the perfect life. I was just your shadow, always the backup plan. How's it feel? I asked quietly. Being someone's shadow? The irony wasn't lost on Caroline. She reached for my hand under the table. The ring, she said to Dylan. It's already back at the jeweler's, along with evidence of how you used company funds to pay for your little rendezvous. Dylan's face went from pale to gray. You can't prove... Check your email, I suggested. The board should be receiving their copies right about now. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. You've ruined me, he whispered. No. Caroline stood, her voice clear and strong. You ruined yourself, and you tried to ruin my relationship with my sister in the process. I never meant, Rosalie started. To get caught, I finished. Funny how that works. Dylan grabbed Rosalie's arm. We're leaving. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Blaze called from the counter. The stream just hit 10,000 viewers, including, according to these comments, your father and the entire board. Oh, and Rosalie, Caroline added, your resignation letter from the firm has already been accepted. Amazing how quickly they act when they discover you've been sharing confidential client information with your lover. Rosalie crumpled, mascara streaming down her face. Dylan practically dragged her toward the door, leaving behind his untouched water and what remained of his dignity. The cafe erupted in applause. Someone shouted, "Girl power," from the back. Well, Blaze joined us, closing his laptop. That was better than Netflix. Caroline laughed, a real laugh, maybe her first in days. I can't believe we actually did it. Believe it, I grinned. Though Mom's probably having a stroke right now. Let her, Caroline said firmly. For once, I don't care what anyone thinks. You were right all along, and I should have trusted you. Water under the bridge, I waved down a waiter. Now I think this calls for champagne. To karma. Caroline raised her water glass. To sisters, I corrected. Blaze's phone chimed. Guys, the video's going viral. You might want to prepare for some interesting family dinners. Caroline and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. Let them talk. We'd shown them all exactly what happens when you try to come between sisters. And something told me no one would dare try again. The aftermath hit like a tidal wave. By evening, our phones wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, calls, and messages. Caroline and I retreated to my apartment where we sat cross-legged on my living room floor, sharing takeout and reading reactions. Listen to this one. Caroline held up her phone. Best karma video ever. The look on his face when they mentioned the board meeting. She scrolled further. It's got 2 million views already. Great, I mumbled around a mouthful of pad thai. Mom's gonna love that. Right on cue, my doorbell rang. We froze, chopsticks midair. Speaking of, Caroline grimaced. I opened the door to find our mother, perfectly coiffed despite the late hour, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Well, she said, sweeping past me, I suppose I should be grateful I found out about this from the video rather than the country club gossip circle. Hello to you too, Mom. I closed the door. Would you like some pad thai? What I'd like, she perched on my sofa, is an explanation. Do you two have any idea what you've done? Caroline stood, shoulders back. Yes, actually. We exposed a cheater and a liar before he could humiliate me at your anniversary party. By humiliating him first? Creating a social media spectacle? No, I joined my sister. By telling the truth. Something Dylan and Rosalie should have tried. Mom's facade cracked slightly. Rosalie, too. But she was like a daughter to me. Yeah, well, Caroline's voice broke. She was like a sister to me, and that didn't stop her from sleeping with my fiancé in my own apartment. Mom's expression softened. She patted the sofa beside her. Sit, both of you. We complied, feeling like kids again. I received some interesting calls today, Mom continued, from the wives of several board members. They're all quite impressed with how you handled things. They are? I blinked. Apparently you're being hailed as some sort of, what did Margaret call it? Sister's goals? Mom shuddered delicately at the modern phrase. The point is, you protected each other, though your methods were rather dramatic. That was my idea, I admitted. The public exposure. No, Caroline interrupted. It was our idea. We did it together. Mom studied us for a long moment. You know, when you were little, all I wanted was for you to be close. But somewhere along the way, she sighed. Perhaps I contributed to the distance between you. Mom, I started. Let me finish. She straightened her skirt. Sawyer, I may have been unfair to you over the years, always comparing you to Caroline. May have been? Caroline scoffed. Caroline, Mom's voice sharpened. You're not innocent either. You've taken advantage of that favoritism. We sat in stunned silence. Our mother had never been this direct about family dynamics. The video of your confrontation made me realize something, she continued. You're strongest when you're together, and I'm proud of you both. You're proud of us causing a social media scandal? I couldn't help asking. I'm proud of you standing up for what's right. Mom actually smiled, though next time, perhaps consider a more private venue. Caroline laughed. No promises. Now, Mom stood, smoothing her dress. About the anniversary party next week. We don't have to go, Caroline said quickly. After all this drama. Of course you're going, Mom cut her off. In fact, I'm counting on it. Several guests have specifically asked if you'll be there. Apparently they're hoping for an encore performance. I choked on my water. Mom! What? If my daughters are going to be internet sensations, I might as well embrace it. She headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Sawyer, wear that emerald dress again. It suits you. After she left, Caroline and I stared at each other in disbelief. Did our mother just approve of our revenge plot? I asked. I think she did. Caroline grabbed her phone. And speaking of the anniversary party, have you seen Dylan's latest post? I leaned over to look. Dylan had posted a formal apology, claiming temporary insanity and begging for professional forgiveness. Damage control, I snorted. Too little, too late. Way too late, Caroline agreed. But you know what this means? What? He's desperate, which means he might try something at the anniversary party. Her eyes gleamed. Want to plan one more performance? I grabbed my laptop. Call Blaze. If Dylan wants an encore, let's give him one he'll never forget. As we began plotting, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. Not just between Caroline and me, but in how we saw ourselves. We weren't the golden child and the shadow anymore. We were simply sisters, united and unstoppable. And anyone who thought our cafe showdown was impressive hadn't seen anything yet. The country club ballroom glittered with 30 years of anniversary celebrations. Mom had outdone herself, crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and enough champagne to float a yacht. But Caroline and I were focused on the security feed playing on my phone. There, Caroline pointed. Dylan just arrived, and he's not alone. Sure enough, Rosalie slipped in through the side entrance moments after him. They were trying to be subtle, but the furtive glances gave them away. Right on schedule, I texted Blaze, who was monitoring the club's security system from his car outside. Start recording. I can't believe they actually came, Caroline whispered, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Of course they did. Dylan's father is on the board with Dad. Missing this party would be career suicide. Speaking of careers, Caroline nodded toward the entrance. Look who else showed up. Amanda, the wedding planner, strutted in wearing a dress that screamed revenge. She'd been furious about losing Caroline's commission, and even more furious when she discovered Dylan had been hitting on her assistant. Perfect, I grinned. Everyone's here. Ready? Caroline squared her shoulders. Born ready. We split up, working the room separately. I caught snippets of conversation as I moved through the crowd, mostly about our viral video with a healthy dose of speculation about tonight's events. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad's voice boomed through the speakers. If I could have your attention, that was my cue. I slipped behind the makeshift stage where the band was setting up, giving Blaze the signal through my phone. The lights dimmed slightly as Dad continued his anniversary speech. Mom beamed beside him, but her eyes kept darting to where Caroline stood near the dessert table. She knew something was coming. And now, Dad wrapped up, I believe my daughters have prepared a special presentation. Caroline joined me on stage as the giant screen behind us flickered to life. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd when security camera footage appeared, showing Dylan and Rosalie entering the party separately. What is this? Dylan stood up, his face reddening. This, Caroline spoke into the microphone, is what a desperate man looks like. The screen split to show multiple angles of Dylan and Rosalie's arrival, along with timestamps from the past hour. Then it switched to footage from earlier that day, them meeting in a hotel lobby, planning their entrance. Turn it off, Dylan demanded, starting toward the stage. But wait, there's more. I took the microphone. Let's see what else our friend Dylan's been up to since our little cafe chat. The screen filled with screenshots. Dylan messaging other women, including Amanda's assistant. Messages to his father claiming Caroline was unstable. Emails to board members trying to spin the situation. You see, Caroline addressed the stunned crowd. Dylan thought he could salvage his reputation by painting us as crazy, vindictive women. Which might have worked, I added, if he hadn't used his company email for everything. Rosalie burst into tears and ran for the exit. Dylan stood frozen, watching his career implode in real time as board members and their wives whispered and pointed. Oh, and Dad? Caroline smiled sweetly at Dylan's father. You might want to audit those expense reports more carefully. We found some interesting charges from hotels, jewelry stores, all billed to the company account. Dylan's father rose slowly, his face thunderous. My office first thing Monday, he growled at his son. This is harassment, Dylan shouted, but his voice cracked. I'll sue. Go ahead, I challenged. Discovery would be fascinating. The room erupted in chaos as Dylan stormed out, his father close behind. Several board members followed, phones already out. Well, Mom appeared beside us as we left the stage. That was certainly more dramatic than the string quartet I suggested. Sorry, Mom, Caroline started. Don't be. Mom sipped her champagne. Margaret just told me it was the most entertaining anniversary party she's ever attended. She paused, though perhaps we should skip the video presentation at Christmas. The party shifted into celebration mode, with several guests stopping to congratulate us on our performance. Amanda caught my eye from across the room and raised her glass in approval. Think we went too far? Caroline asked quietly as we watched Dylan's mother make a hasty exit. He was going to destroy your reputation and my relationship with our family, I reminded her. He got what he deserved. True. She linked her arm through mine. Know what else is true? What? We make a pretty good team. Blaze joined us, laptop under his arm. Hate to interrupt the sister moment, but you might want to see this. The security footage just leaked online. What? Caroline grabbed his computer. How? Apparently someone in IT has a grudge against Dylan. Something about him getting his sister fired last year? I couldn't help laughing. Karma really is a full circle thing, isn't it? As the party swirled around us, I realized we'd done more than expose Dylan and Rosalie. We'd exposed our own strength, not as rivals, not as golden child and shadow, but as sisters who had each other's backs. And that was worth all the viral videos in the world. Monday morning brought the fallout we'd been waiting for. Caroline and I met for coffee at our usual spot, phones buzzing with updates. Dylan's been suspended pending investigation. Caroline read from her screen. The board is launching a full audit. That's not all. I showed her my phone. Rosalie's been blacklisted from every major PR firm in the city. Apparently, sleeping with clients' fiancés is bad for business. The bell above the cafe door chimed. We looked up to see Amanda rushing in, her face flushed with excitement. You're not going to believe this. She slid into our booth without invitation. Dylan just tried to book my services again. What? Caroline nearly spilled her latte. For what? His wedding to Rosalie. Amanda's grin was wicked. Apparently, they're trying to save face by claiming it was true love all along. You said no, right? I asked. Better. Amanda pulled out her tablet. I recorded the whole consultation. Wait till you hear his sob story. The video showed Dylan, looking considerably less polished than usual, sitting in Amanda's office. It's all been a terrible misunderstanding, Video Dylan pleaded. If we could just show everyone it was real love, not some tawdry affair. By booking the same venues I reserved for Caroline? Amanda's voice was acid sweet. Using the same company credit card you're being investigated for misusing? I can explain. Save it for the board meeting. Amanda's hand appeared, showing him the door. I hear they're very interested in your explanations lately. Caroline slow clapped as the video ended. Amanda, you're officially my hero. Please, Amanda waved her hand. After what he did to my assistant, this is just the beginning. My phone buzzed again, a message from Blaze. Speaking of beginnings, guess who just got promoted to head of cybersecurity? No way. Caroline peered at my screen. All because he helped expose the company's security vulnerabilities? Apparently, Dylan's father was impressed by his initiative in identifying potential threats. I laughed, though I doubt this was what he had in mind. The cafe door chimed again. This time, Rosalie walked in. She froze when she saw us, her designer outfit replaced by yoga pants and a messy bun. I'll handle this. Caroline stood before I could stop her. We watched as she approached Rosalie, who looked ready to bolt. But instead of the confrontation we expected, Caroline simply handed her a card. What was that about? I asked when she returned. Just giving her the number of my therapist. Caroline shrugged. Someone that desperate for attention clearly needs help. That's surprisingly mature of you. Well, she stirred her coffee. Holding on to anger only hurts me. Besides, karma's doing a pretty good job on its own. Amanda's phone pinged. Speaking of karma, Dylan's father just called. Wants to know if I've heard from his son. Apparently he missed the board meeting this morning. Missed it? I frowned. That's not like him. Caroline's phone lit up with a news alert. She read it and burst out laughing. What? Amanda and I asked simultaneously. Dylan was caught trying to leave the country last night, with company funds. Caroline could barely get the words out. Airport security stopped him because someone reported his credit cards as stolen. Someone? I raised an eyebrow at Blaze's contact photo on my phone. The best part, Caroline continued, Rosalie turned him in. She's cooperating with the investigation in exchange for immunity. Hell hath no fury, Amanda mused. Like a woman scorned, I suggested. Like two sisters with a good plan and better tech support, Caroline corrected. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Mom. Lunch today? Your father wants to discuss making you both partners in the family business. Caroline read the message over my shoulder. Both of us, really? Why not? I smiled. We've proven we work well together. That we do. She clinked her coffee cup against mine. Though maybe we should stick to legal business strategies from now on. Probably safer, Amanda agreed, though less entertaining for the rest of us. As we laughed and shared more updates about Dylan's downfall, I realized something. The shadow I'd lived in for so long hadn't just lifted. It had transformed into a spotlight big enough for both Caroline and me. You know what this means, right? Caroline interrupted my thoughts. What? Mom's going to expect us to coordinate our outfits for board meetings now. As long as it's not another emerald dress, I grinned. Deal. She grabbed her purse. Ready to go shock Dad with our business proposals? Born ready, I echoed her words from the party. As we left the cafe, Amanda called after us. Try not to cause any more scandals. No promises, we called back in unison. Because while our revenge saga might be over, our story as sisters was just beginning. And something told me it would be even better than the viral videos suggested. Ready for this? Caroline squeezed my hand as we stood outside the boardroom. Through the glass walls, we could see our father addressing the board members. As ready as I'll ever be, I smoothed my blazer, navy blue, not emerald green. You remember your part? Please. She rolled her eyes. I was born for this presentation. Dad's voice carried through the door. And now I'd like to introduce our newest partners. We walked in together, shoulders back, heads high. The same board members who'd witnessed Dylan's downfall now sat watching us with keen interest. His empty chair stood as a reminder of how quickly fortunes could change. Good morning, Caroline began, her voice steady. Today we're presenting our vision for the company's future. I clicked to the first slide, starting with a complete digital transformation of our client services. The presentation flowed smoothly between us, each picking up where the other left off. When we finished, the room stayed silent for a long moment. Impressive, Dylan's father spoke first, surprising everyone, particularly the cybersecurity initiatives, though I suppose recent events have shown how necessary those are. Speaking of recent events, another board member leaned forward. How do we know you two won't bring more drama to the company? Fair question. I met his gaze. What happened with Dylan was about protecting our family, both personal and professional. Every action we took was to expose genuine threats to this company. And it worked, Caroline added. The audit revealed he'd embezzled over $2 million. Our actions saved this company from a much bigger scandal. By creating a smaller one? Someone muttered. No, Dad stood. By showing initiative, resourcefulness, and an unwavering commitment to truth. Exactly the qualities we need in leadership. Mom chose that moment to enter, carrying a stack of folders. The final audit reports, she announced, distributing them, including the recovery plan my daughters developed. The board members flipped through the documents, eyebrows raising at the detailed analysis. This is thorough, Dylan's father admitted. We protect what's ours, I said simply. And we're very good at it, Caroline finished. The vote was unanimous. Later, celebrating in Dad's office, Mom pulled out a familiar envelope. Remember this? She handed it to me. I recognized it immediately. The envelope that had started everything, containing those first screenshots of Dylan's messages. Keep it, Mom said, as a reminder that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Like finding out your sister is actually your best ally? Caroline bumped my shoulder. Or discovering your daughters are smarter than you gave them credit for, Dad added, pouring champagne. Or learning that karma works better with a good strategy and better timing, I grinned. A knock interrupted us. Amanda poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but you might want to see this. She held up her phone. Rosalie just posted her tell-all interview. We crowded around the screen, watching Rosalie detail every aspect of Dylan's schemes. The comment section was exploding. Well, Mom sighed, at least we're not the ones creating drama this time. No, Caroline smiled. We're just the ones who started it. And finished it, I added. To new beginnings, Dad raised his glass. And Sister Axe. Caroline clinked her glass against mine. Speaking of Axe, Amanda scrolled through her phone. That video of your anniversary party revenge just hit 10 million views. You're officially viral sensations. Great, I groaned. Just what every corporate executive wants on their resume. Actually, Mom's eyes twinkled. The marketing department wants to discuss your social media presence. Apparently, you've made our family business relevant to millennials. We all laughed, but there was truth there. Everything had changed. Our relationships, our roles, our futures. The shadow I'd lived in had become a spotlight we shared, and the sister I'd envied had become my closest ally. You know what this means? Caroline nudged me. What? Next board meeting, we're definitely wearing matching outfits. As long as they're not emerald green? Everyone finished in unison. Looking around at my family, Mom finally seeing me clearly, Dad trusting us with his legacy, and Caroline standing beside me as an equal, I realized something profound. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about getting revenge or proving yourself. Sometimes it's about discovering that what you wanted all along was right there, waiting for you to be brave enough to claim it. To the Townsend sisters, Amanda raised her glass. To family, Mom and Dad echoed. To us, Caroline whispered, linking her arm through mine. To us, I agreed, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because that's what sisters do. Especially sisters who've learned that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living well together.